My biggest competitor was not any competitor. It was actually non-consumption. So any business to be successful, there are two important aspects. One is the product, and the second is the sales. One of the things that I always tell all of fellow entrepreneurs that I speak to, you should always have your own board of advisors. The more diverse the board of advisors, the better.
Aditya Tulsian is an accomplished entrepreneur whose company, Numberz, was acquired by Chargebee. He has an exciting journey building a product firsthand in India and leveraged on that experience to build Numberz as a fintech organization. His unique experience is going to teach us a lot. Let's listen. Aditya, welcome to Uwacha.
Thank you so much. Really excited.
Thank you so much for joining us. Shubhanga,
Aditya,
tell us how you met Aditya.
No, first of all, thank you for coming, for making this
My
happen.
pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
And I've known Aditya for like 7 years now.
Yeah.
I think I had the privilege of leading Yes Fintech back in Yes Bank, and Aditya was one of our 8 fintechs that we had kind of joined hands with, and since then he's been kind enough to take my phone calls beyond Yes Bank as well. So thank you for that. And of course now, so he's the founder of Numberz. Numberz is now part of Chargebee.
Yeah.
And would love to hear more about how, I think why don't you start with an introduction of yourself?
Sure.
Where were you born? Where did you go to school? Would love to know more, because I also don't know, in all honesty.
Well, I was born in Calcutta, okay, and I did my schooling there till class 12. Did my engineering from Pune, then my MBA from ISB Hyderabad, and then sort of a typical MBA career to start with, where you joined a consulting firm, did some gigs around the world with them, and then you realized that while it taught me a lot, I missed really getting into action, right? And that's when I lugged in, wherein Intuit, which is the world's leading accounting and tax company, right, based out of the US, decided that they want to launch their business in India. And they wanted someone with a bit of a strategy background and interest in operations.
When was this?
This was in 2009.
9.
And to me, and at that point of time, I had just started contemplating to say, should I start on my own? And when the Intuit offer came to me and they told me this is the profile, I almost felt that you're getting paid to start something new and really learn along the way. So I took up Intuit. And my initial thought was that I'm going to be there for a couple of years, and then by that time, try something for myself. And that small period went on to be almost 6 years. And I really think that the amount I learned in that 6 years at Intuit has become the bedrock for everything and how I think about business. So I think it was
what were
the
they?
best.
If you have to kind of distill it down to your top 3 learnings, what were your top 3 learnings there?
One of the most important pieces that I learned at Intuit, okay, was that there are different types of companies that get built. Okay, for example, Google. Okay, Google is a technology first company. Okay, they have a great tech teams. They would innovate on a technology and then start figuring out how to monetize it, how to get people to make a use case, etc. And then there are product companies. Okay, where the company thinks about what is the customer pain point. Okay, and then start building what is the potential solution can be around it, and then they start thinking about how can it be built, what technology, etc. So Scott Cook, who was the founder at Intuit, right? He was an MBA himself, worked at P&G, and kind of not the typical tech guy that you would think would build a company like Intuit, it was an absolute phenomenal experience to think about how do you think about a customer first and the solution next and the technology third. So that was the biggest insight that I got to know. Okay, I got to learn when I was into it. And if I have to make it even more tactical, right, there were 2 specific sort of concepts that I think I'm going to continue all my life. One really was this concept of follow me homes, or in
Sorry, what?
Follow me homes.
Okay.
Right? Or in some cases, follow me to offices, right? Where you decide who your potential customer is or what problem you want to solve. And you actually request the customer, okay, to say, can I visit you at your workplace or your home? and have an interaction with you, an open interaction with you. And when you go to that customer's home or office, you have an open-ended session, but at the same time, you observe small things around them. And using those conversations, open-ended conversations, and those observations, you start building your understanding of how the customer is really going through that motions for that particular problem. That
or
is
living their life in general.
living the life, right? Exactly.
So we do this in design thinking called the ethnography,
Yes.
conversation, observation, immersion.
Yeah.
So either through conversations or observations, or like you said, follow me homes or follow me to work.
Yeah.
Immersions. That means you become their assistant for a day or two, and then just live their life.
Is that like
It's a
under
thing.
the design thinking construct?
Yeah.
Okay. So that was one.
So that was a very powerful one
Yeah.
to start with.
And you started doing that before you launched this product in India, right?
Yes. So we had launched QuickBooks in India, okay, and I was responsible for the first experiment on QuickBooks till the time we grew up to almost 30,000 users in India, and we would actually go to small businesses offices and chartered accountant offices, and sometimes just find excuses to be there as long as we could, right, and observe them, and come back and sort of then start collating all these observations to say what are the patterns.
And we also recommend to make all these observations very visual.
Yes.
So what were some methods you used for that?
Obviously, photographs were one of the key important pieces, right? So taking the customer's permission.
Yeah.
If she allows us to take a photograph, we would actually take photographs of various aspects of how we can understand the customer. So let me give you a very concrete example. So one of the follow me offices we did was for a small business. Okay, this is during the time of the QBO experiments that I was doing.
What is QBO?
QuickBooks Online.
Okay.
QuickBooks Online. So when we're speaking to the customer, okay, and we were asking the customer, so how do you manage accounting? How do you get your reports and stuff like that, right? And what we sometimes also realize is that the customers sometimes are so immersed in the day-to-day operations, okay, they don't realize that whether it's inefficient, okay, whether it's perfect or what are the gaps. They just say, many of times they will either say everything's perfect or they will say everything's broken, right? So what you need to do is we used to start observing is on a table, are the reports kept? Okay, the financial reports kept, okay, or sales reports kept. So are there printouts, okay, of properly formatted Excel sheet or what's going on, right? Second, you would also try to observe or ask them, okay, so where are the invoices that you bill your customer? Okay, where are they kept? Or if you have to give the expenses to your accountant, how do you approve them, stuff like that. So when you ask these open-ended questions, what you realize, the customer then gives you the answer, and then you just follow up to say, can you show me some of them? And then when you observe to say, how are they getting those invoices? Is it in the drawer? Are they asking the accountant to come in? Are they asking the secretary to get it? Right? When you start making these observations, okay, you realize what's really going on. And at that time, you take those photographs, okay, to say, okay, can I take this photograph of this invoice? Can I take this photograph of this file? Okay. And while this is happening, if let's say an accountant is involved, and if this is in a glass door or if it's an open area, you start taking the photos after taking the permission. Is that how is the desk of the accountant? That tells you a lot of stories. So once you are able to record these conversations and then you are able to superimpose those photographs, okay, you're able to understand to some extent what's going on.
It's basically to understand the life of your customer.
Yeah. No, even I think so one of the things that I have seen in my professional experience as well as, I didn't know the concept was follow me homes
or follow me offices.
But I used to encourage my teams to actually obviously visit users more importantly than the customer themselves. And what I have seen is people in the product, people in the business typically tend to visit and understand the users far better. And they do it, probably it's part of the job. But on the engineering side of the equation, who are the true builders, tend to not interact at all.
Yeah.
And that kind of comes out in the product output itself.
Yeah.
Either as something that is not, interactively elegant, or it just takes much longer for the product team to actually say what needs to be built and why what needs to be
Yes.
built. So did you guys also kind of have your build teams interact with your users?
I would say it was a journey even for us.
Mhm.
Okay, even though I was a huge proponent of that in my own startup. Okay, what I would realize is that the product managers would do that, the sales people would do that. Okay, of course, obviously they would do that, and the customer support or customer success would do that. Right, the hardcore engineering people would not obviously. It wasn't a natural motion for them to do it.
I
right?
agree.
So what would happen in this case is that it's very difficult to put it as a process for them, okay? Because then suddenly there's pressure on them to do it, right? It has to come naturally, because even if they do this, the important thing is that they have to empathize with that customer and really understand what's going on.
I agree.
So what we used to do is, even in the engineering teams, we would try to find at least one or two of those people who had that empathy, right? And we would ask them to accompany us during those sessions. So that, and sort of get them to interact with the customer, ask questions. Even if some of those questions are very basic, it's absolutely okay.
Yeah.
Right? Just so that they start getting a feel of how this really happens. And once you're able to create one or two people who are interested, they become your proponents, right? And then they go out and speak to the other team members to that. So even if you don't get your entire tech team to do it, right?
I agree.
As long as you have those 2 or 3 people for whom this comes a bit more natural, if you're able to spot them and encouraging them, what you will realize is that they actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
And then they would come back to you to do it. So instead of putting it as a process that every engineer has to do it,
I totally agree.
okay, we would just try to spot 2 or 3 people who had a natural inclination to that. And they would then sort of either inspire the people or be a customer spokesperson within the engineering organization.
Yeah, I think the key skill sets you need for this is empathy.
Yeah.
And curiosity,
Yeah.
observation, reading between the lines. So these are, like you said, it cannot be systematized. You need to find these few people
Yeah.
who do it really well and encourage them to do it for the team or the organization.
I
as
agree.
such, yeah.
But switching gears, so you did product and strategy at Intuit. Obviously, QuickBooks was a great hit. I think QuickBooks is now discontinued, if I recall.
Yeah, in India.
In India, yeah. And what happened? You were doing well, and then why did you start?
Before we go there, I think the second aspect that you were talking about, one is Follow Me Home.
Okay, we missed the second one.
The second aspect was the this whole, in 2009, 2010, if you guys remember, there was a huge wave around Eric Ries talking about lean startups.
Lean
Yeah.
startup.
Right? And I was just super lucky that I was right at the time when Intuit was starting to adopt lean startups, okay, as a concept, okay, or this whole experimentation frame mindset, okay, as a concept across the org. And what it really taught me is that you don't need to launch a product to figure out, okay, whether it's going to work or not. Okay, it's not that you're going to have all the answers, but you can actually answer a lot of questions even before you even write a single line of code.
Yeah.
So imagine from a product company's perspective that if I'm able to give you key insights upfront, even before a single line of code is written, the amount of heartburn and effort that goes into developing a product is taken care of.
At least the key hypothesis
Yes.
and assumptions can be checked. Yeah.
Right. So the way we understood that was, for any problem or solution, there has to be 2 or 3 very key hypotheses that need to be true for the product to be successful, right? That doesn't guarantee the product will be successful, right? But at least if those 2 or 3 hypotheses can be tested out, even if you cannot be tested out, at least you realize that these things have to be proven for the product to be successful. It's a huge leap, huge advantage that you get. Of course, there's a debate whether, and they used to call it a minimal viable product, okay, to some extent. Of course, there's a debate in certain types of companies, certain types of products. You don't need a minimal viable product. You need to have a minimal workable product, right? So that can change based on the type of company, the type of product, right? But the concept really is that before you really invest into an idea, right, run multiple small, well-defined and well-measured experiments, so that you learn more about the customer or the pain point before you start building it.
Or even validating the business model behind it, right? That does this really work? Can that also be built into experiments?
So that's how I think about it. As someone who's been kind of fascinated by product thinking, right?
Yeah.
So viability is really from a business standpoint. So when somebody's saying they are trying to build a minimum viable product, they are probably thinking how much we can spend to make that product happen.
Commercially viable.
When you said minimum workable product, you are already thinking customer. So it has to work for the customer. So the value part of it, and Marty Kagan beautifully explains in Empowered, right? So being a big fan of his kind of thinking, and he very clearly kind of sets these as two different pillars: viability and value creation. Are two sides, but both has to work. So it has to be viable, but it also has to be workable. I think early on, and I think financial services organizations are more guilty of just focusing on the viability than the workability. So I think it's a great insight there.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll differentiate is that it's very important for us to figure out what type of product and what type of customer you are trying to work for, right? So in an SMB or an enterprise-focused thing, right, you can't have a minimal viable product. Okay, an enterprise is not going to commit to anything if it's just a proof of concept. And so it has to be a minimal workable product. There have to be other pieces that you have to add on, subtract to it to figure out what this minimal workable product can be without you having to over-invest a lot of money. So therefore, I would just say it's not. I would not want to make a generic statement and say for every kind of a startup, every kind of a product, every kind of business, you should have a minimal viable product or a minimal workable product. I think as long as the concept that you don't need to develop a complete product
end to end.
Okay. To go and launch your business or serve a customer, it's absolutely okay. And I'll give you a very, I learned this from one of the product managers at Intuit. I still remember, she was Deepa Bachu. And I learned this concept called FACO backend, right? And when I first heard it, I was like, what the heck is that? FACO backend basically is that when the customer is using your product and a workflow sort of gets completed, right? Chances are at the back end, you're doing it manually. It's not coded. Okay. You don't know how it's going to work, but it may be like someone is ordering, if someone goes to an e-commerce website, he or she orders, book and, after.
I've seen those advertisements where, ATM, there's a man behind and actually
exactly like right. So that FACO backend as a concept, again, it's like a generic concept, but the idea really is that for your first couple of customers, right, you have to have their buy-in to sort of tell them that, guys, it's not going to be perfect. We'll give you an experience as if it's going to be seamless, but in the back end, maybe we are doing some adjustments. So what it does for you is you are able to see the intent of the customer. You're able to understand how will the customer use it, okay, get more signals without actually having to build all the pipes, all those connections, okay, the huge amount of code. So therefore, for each product, as I said, for each product and business, you can think about and be very, very creative of how can you create a minimum use minimum investments to show or capture value.
Yeah.
And there is this very interesting exercise or experiment that was done a few centuries ago, where they built a chess playing machine and everyone thought it's artificial intelligence at play. And this is a wooden machine which is moving the pawns and it's defeating players of chess. And everyone's like, okay, this is great. And people would come to watch it. And then after a few weeks, when they open up the machine, there is a grandmaster who's hiding inside it. And that's exactly what we encourage, right? That building those experiments
Yeah.
with FACO backend, as you called it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So you don't have the intelligence, and IBM also used this in their speech to text technology.
Right.
They called a few customers and they said, we have speech to text. This was in the late 90s. And they said, hey, we have a tech that's available. Can you use it? And people spoke into a mic like this and it would type it out. And they said, oh, this is the tech. Okay. And how much would you pay for it? And so on.
Yes.
But at the back end, there was an operator listening and typing.
Yes.
And whatever he's typing is coming on the screen. So they need not have to build the product to really understand what its true meaning.
Yeah.
I think both of you spoke about two angles, right? You spoke about workability. So when we are teaching product thinking, design thinking for product development specifically, we give them this matrix and say, how do you sort of evaluate it? And we add these three pieces, that is desirability, feasibility, and viability.
Yeah.
So desirability is mainly from how badly does a customer want what you're building. For example, Harley Davidson bikes, right? People tattoo a logo of a company on their arm.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's literally a lot of passion that the customer is showing. So, desirability is from the customer angle, feasibility is from the technology angle, viability is from the business angle. So, when all the three you have rated high on your product, that's when your product is really innovative. And it's serving the three key points to become a success. That the customer wants it, it is business viable, and technologically feasible.
Yeah.
So, it's a beautiful intersection of what you're trying to build.
Yes.
And one of these two is missing. You need to reevaluate and see, oh, what are we doing now? Is it too early or not?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I need to learn more about design thinking. I've not really had any formal kind of, what do you say, exposure to design thinking as a concept, but it sounds eerily similar to what we kind of, what I have kind of come across in product thinking kind of.
There's a huge overlap.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a lot more depth in certain areas.
Yeah.
But for sure, it's really interesting to see it in action in what you've done. And we pick up these examples, to be honest, Aditya, from different places, and we're really inspired by some of these stories. So when we do certain projects, we have done it hands-on, the ethnography, interviews, conversations, and we encourage people to do it. So in our product development journey, it's like an innovation program.
Yeah.
We say, go and meet 10 customers, find insight, show it to us.
Yes.
So, of course, sometimes people are like, oh, I have my job and you're asking me to do this. But people who really do it, they are like shocked by, oh my God, I didn't know this was the issue.
So I'll give you another example on this one. Okay, is let's say when you're building, at Numberz, when we are building a product, right?
Sorry, before, what is Numberz?
Yeah. So while I was at Intuit, okay, and we were selling accounting software to small businesses across India, one of the part of the design things that we were doing, and when we were doing a lot of these follow me homes, what we realized that the big aha moment for me was an entrepreneur, when they wake up in the morning, okay, the biggest problem is not accounting at all. Okay, they don't lose sleep on accounting. They know someone somewhere is going to help them out and they'll sail through. The biggest problem for the business owner is cash flow. Is how am I going to manage my day-to-day cash flow? And all businesses have that. Whether you are a Fortune 500 company or whether you're a small young startup, cash flow is your biggest problem, right? And that's where we realize is that there's a huge opportunity where if you can help small businesses seamlessly manage their cash flow, you're going to solve one of the biggest challenges that a business can have. And when we thought about business cash flow, what we also realized was it wasn't only software, or it wasn't just automation. It wasn't only efficiency that's going to get them. It's also access to good and affordable financial services. So the idea, what we came up with was, if there is a way that you can do help them some of the workflows around cash flow management, whether it's accounts receivables or accounts payable, one of them or both of them, and if you can integrate financial services within that, so there's an opportunity where you'll be able to deeply impact the business's sort of cash flow problem. So that was the idea that got me to give up Intuit at the peak of my career at Intuit. Okay, and I decided overnight that it's now or never. So let me just go out and start working on it. And that's when in 2015 I decided that it was time for me to do something on my own. And in 2016, along with quite a few of my colleagues from Intuit who joined me and a few other people, we launched Numberz, wherein we started off by thinking that we will help small businesses, and we got quite a bit of growth there. But then eventually we realized that the problem is even bigger for large corporates. So then we sort of went into solving.
How did you come up with this Numberz as the name?
So one thing that I was always fascinated with is the only way that you'll be top of mind of the customer is if you are able to somehow be part of the lingo on an ongoing basis. So what is that?
I know your wife is also a brand specialist.
Yes.
So was she instrumental in this?
Yeah. So after we
now is the time to say yes.
Yes. It's always a yes, man. It's always a yes. In fact, we won multiple awards for our branding. Okay. And she was the brains and the effort behind it. So the way we thought about Numberz as a name was, one of the things that every business owner will think about is, I need to meet my numbers, right? I want to meet my financial numbers. I want to meet my sales numbers. So no matter what you do, the word numbers is always going to be repeated. And if you are already part of the system, right, they'll always remember you. Yeah. So that was the way we thought about Numberz. And the key role that my wife played was, even if you call it Numberz and you see numbers somewhere, so you are like, is it Numberz? Is it a company for children? Okay, because you're trying to teach them numbers, or is it something else? So she used the word numbers and added commas there, which sort of represented lakhs in the Indian metric system. So when you would see numbers, it would be in a way that after the first three letters from the right, there was a comma. After two, there was a comma, which sort of spoke about the Indian financial representations.
And also it represents larger numbers, so it's not necessarily for kids. And
exactly. Yeah. So therefore the financial piece comes in, therefore it's more to do with business numbers. So that's how we sort of put it up.
Amazing. But coming back to Numberz, Aditya, I think so we met around 2017.
Yeah, 2017.
You were about 1 year into business?
Just about 1 year, yeah.
1 year. And I think the idea back then was, how do we kind of facilitate small and medium businesses to actually also open bank accounts through your platform?
Yeah.
And I remember, I think Dhawan Shah from Yes Bank used to kind of sponsor it.
You're the biggest.
He was the biggest proponent, right? I think. And we didn't really succeed there, clearly, right? So what did not go well from your point of view? And clearly, those were mixed times, because I think you also raised capital around that time.
Yeah.
And but your original business idea and our kind of thought processes didn't really work out.
Yes.
So can you kind of walk us through what happened?
So as I said, when I spoke about Numberz was, the idea was to marry financial management software with financial services. Okay. And that's why Yes Bank was a huge important step for us. And when we had people like Dhawan Shah really champion us, right, we were very, very excited. And we, of course, became part of Yes Fintech. I think the reason why we did not do, we were not very successful, okay, I always pin down on 3 specific reasons. The first reason was we went wrong in a very core first principles concept, which is know who is the customer you're serving. Okay, and don't worry about which all customers you have access to. So that was the biggest mistake I think I did as a CEO of Numberz, where when a company like a Yes Bank, which was a behemoth, and a startup gets partnering with them, you suddenly see that it's your ticket to being the rocket ship, right, or building a rocket ship, and a company like a Yes Bank says, oh, this is also possible, this is also possible, this is also possible, this is also possible. So we were also being introduced to enterprises, we were also being introduced to mid-market, we were also being introduced to small businesses, even tech startups. And we're like, oh, our product can sort of serve this. And we said, okay, now let's, we started trying to test which is the customer that we can serve the best. And sort of we went broad. So I think if I have to do that again, okay, one thing I will do is, even if that hypothesis is not right, I would just pick up one specific hypothesis to say, let's only focus on small tech startups and get them to see this experience end to end.
So in a sense, we were trying to
Spread ourselves too.
I mean, trying to be something for everyone.
Yes,
Rather than actually kind of being something to some segment.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think somewhere, I think it's also a lesson on the other side, right? I mean, having been a banker, pretty much I was on the other side.
Yeah.
We were also excited about the prospect that, hey, here is a startup
Yeah.
which actually has a great product, and it can, in a sense,
Work for everyone.
dramatically fuel our kind of growth as well, right? And I think somewhere it's not just a lesson for startups, but also it is for people who are in the other side of the equation to not deluge the opportunity landscape with, when we're working with early stage startups in a sense. So that was reason number one that you said.
The second reason that I think was both Yes Bank and Numberz were, I think, just a year too early in this concept. Okay, and what I mean by that is API banking had taken off, or was starting off.
Yeah.
Okay, not taken off, starting off, and a lot of the success sort of stories where, if you really ask me, were great from a consumer use cases perspective. I mean, and therefore a lot of the APIs that were exposed, okay, could have solved well for a consumer kind of a product.
Yeah.
Okay. Ours was an SMB or a business use case product, right? And the APIs that were required for that, okay, were either still under development, okay, or we had to keep telling Yes Bank at that point of time
Correct.
to say we need these things to be opened up. And because it was a large kind of a bank, right? Very soon, 6-9 months into the journey, I realized that the timeline that Yes Bank had and what we had was very divergent, right? So I think the vision matched, okay, but I don't think the timelines matched just because of the size of the two companies. Yeah. So that was another second one, which I think is very important, that I realize is that you have to be realistic on, how will your partner really move?
Execution wise.
Yeah, execution wise, in terms of, because they're also learning on the way. And the third, I think, where I fundamentally think that we could have done slightly a better job as well as both of us, was for any business to be successful, there are two important aspects. One is the product, okay, and the second is the sales. In a concept like when you partner with a large company, okay, it's sometimes easier to get people at the product excited, okay, and say, let's do this together, we can solve this problem. But the challenge really comes in is, can their sales team understand that combined product? And can they go out and sell the product? Because what you have to realize is that the salesperson moves because of incentives, right? They will take the path of least resistance. So if I am a salesperson who already has multiple portfolios to sell, and you go to them and say, hey, sell us another new product, right? And the incentive for you is going to be A. In their head, they will just do a very simple calculation. This is my target, right? These are the 3 or 4 products which are very easy to sell. I can get my target over here. Even if there's a negative bump, if I don't sell this,
I think in some ways we didn't really solve for that aspect at all, right?
We
probably realized it in hindsight.
Yeah.
But I think we were trying to solve for the end user.
Yeah.
Who is the SMB user. And we never actually kind of solved for the channel through which actually that end user will get access or discover our product.
Right.
I think that's an important piece, especially when it comes to B2B.
Yeah.
That you're actually, every stakeholder there needs to kind of have a conscious kind of thinking.
Yeah.
And how is it going to benefit, or what is the value that each of them gets? Because most of the time it's not just your user, it's also who is actually taking your product to the user.
Exactly. And while I've told you this from a perspective of a big company and a small startup partnership, but that's true even for if you are a multi-product company, right? If you're a multi-product company and you have multiple products to sell, if you don't have the right incentives and enablement for your sales team to be able to sell all 4 products, the sales team will actually go and sell those products that they're most comfortable with, right? So anyone who has to think about scale and who has to think about sort of utilizing the sales team to sell multiple products, this is something that you have to be very, very careful about. And sometimes I feel that in this kind of a structure, it's not the greatness of the product. Okay, it's the ability of the sales guy to sell is far more important. Okay.
So in terms of taking it to customers, what channel? If you're using an existing channel, how do you build novelty for your sales team in this case, or have a exponentially higher incentive? I don't know. So what has worked for you?
So first of all, I'm going to give a first cliched answer that every channel is going to be have to have a different approach.
Correct.
Okay. But if you're launching a new product, right? So if you're a startup, you're launching a new product, and there are two ways to think about it. One, is the concept itself completely new? So sometimes you're solving a pain point which sometimes the customer does not know that they have it, and therefore you're trying to tell them, hey, this can be a problem, and therefore this can be a problem solution. Okay.
So you're educating the customer.
You have to educate the customer, right? Because you have to make them realize that this is a problem, right? That was the most difficult to do. The second one is that there's an existing problem, the customer understands there's a problem, and they go for a specific type of solution. Then you're going to them to say, instead of this type of solution, this is another type of solution that can come in, right? So why don't you try it? This is slightly easier.
Because
right?
they've felt the problem.
Yeah, because they already felt the problem. Okay, and they are already going for a solution
that exists.
Yeah. So there it's slightly easier than this. Yeah. The other one is that, it's a very established category. Okay. And you just have to go and tell them that my product is different from the other product. Right. So any new product, they have to first be categorized into what is or in which stage of the problem realization journey, okay, is the customer in. My biggest competitor was not any competitor, okay, but was actually non-consumption.
By users.
By users. That means the customers were not consuming any of those solutions.
So like not even Excel.
Yeah, what it could be, right? So I would not call, so let's say in accounting software, like, or, during the initial Numberz days, Excel was a non-consumption. Example, right? Because the person or the business owner is not buying Excel to do their finances.
It's just using Excel,
right?
Because
they're just using Excel, right? So it's like they bought Excel anyway as part of their software suite of products, and they're like, okay, Excel works, so let me just use Excel for everything in the world, right? Right from managing their HR to their business plan to finance tracking, including invoices, everything, right? So these kinds of customers, we used to call them non-consumption, and we realized that our biggest competitor was always non-consumption, right? I still remember at Intuit, we had a CEO called Brad Smith, okay, who's a phenomenal leader, okay? And he used to work at Pepsi. And I remember he had come on stage once, and we had asked him the question, so, how do you think about competition? So he gave this very beautiful story where he said, when he was at Pepsi, and he used to take his sales guys onto the supermarket stores, and they would say, oh, there's so many cans of Pepsi, but there's so many cans of Coke. So let's try to get more shelf space from Coke. He would say, but actually Coke is not a competitor. Your competitor is the bottled water, right? Those are non-consumption. Okay, you actually have to go after them. Okay, and the moment you go after them, okay, your pie will automatically increase. So think about non-consumption. Okay, so think about, when companies build their product, right, and especially if it's an innovation, either it's an innovation of the category or it's innovation of the type of solution in that category, or if it's a new type of a better improved solution of an existing thing, right? You have to understand that first, and you have to understand what is that your customer is really comparing you to, okay? And therefore, build your marketing or sales strategy according to that.
So on the back of whatever, Yes Bank's engagement not really kind of flying out, what happened post facto? Like, you've done something right after that.
Yeah.
And what was the pivot? How did you guys decide to do something else? When did you say, okay, this is not working?
Yeah. First of all, I think it's easier to say that Yes Bank didn't work for us. Okay. But the matter of fact was, because of Yes Bank, we started getting some of the large corporates to come to us and tell us that, hey, we've heard of your solution. that you help businesses with accounts receivables. We have an accounts receivables problem. Would you want to solve it for us? And the first time I got this a request, okay, from one of the sales guys, okay, actually sales/product guys at the bank. I was like, guys, we are a product company, right? We sell for small businesses. Okay, we are not going to build a solution for you, right? We are not a software
services company.
And I said no to them first. They again came back. Okay, I again sent it to them. The third time they came up with an Excel sheet, okay, with all the specific requirements that they wanted on the platform. And when I read that Excel sheet, okay, I realized that this is the roadmap that I would have wanted to build for my AR solution. Okay, and I was like, no, this is interesting. Okay, so therefore, it's not completely out of whack. So I said, fine, let me go meet them. Okay, this company was in South India. It was a 5,000 crore company, and they had an SAP, they had Salesforce. Okay, they had a very solid market sort of leadership in some of the markets that were in India. And when I went to them and I started speaking to them, I realized that bigger the company, the bigger AR mess they are in.
The bigger the AR mess they are
accounts receivables mess they are in. Okay. Yeah, the collection mess. And I was like, I'm actually solving AR and AP for small businesses. Okay. And here, this is an opportunity where there's a large company who's ready to pay a significant amount of money, right? So just to give you the magnitude, we used to struggle to get even 5,000, 10,000 rupees for a year from a small business for us platform, okay? And here was this large company which was ready to pay us 25 to 30 lakh rupees, okay, for the enhanced version of a software. And we were like, how many SMBs do you have to sell to
reach this number? Yeah.
To reach one guy's number,
and
right?
Yeah.
And here the customer has come to me saying that I know, so even with your rustic solution for an SMB, I know I can solve things, but can you add a few more things, which was part of my roadmap. So that's where the first time it flipped happened. Then of course I did a secondary research. I saw that there was a big company in the US called High Radius, which was very profitable company, an ex-partner of SAP, then built this software. And I was like, that there are quite a few account payable companies in the US which are, huge, but there are very few AR companies, but you can see these companies that are growing. So I was like, is this a huge opportunity? Okay. And so then we did a bit more research. By that time, we had a few more customers coming from the banks telling us that, hey, do you want to talk to them? So I went to them again and asked them. Again, I saw a pattern. So I think what really happened for us at that point of time was we were doing accounts receivables and accounts payable for small businesses. Okay. Then we realized that large companies have the AR itself is a huge problem. Okay. And if you just focus on that, this can actually not only be an India problem, it can be a global problem. Right. So suddenly the vision dramatically expanded. Okay. What it also realized was that.
And were there any competing considerations?
In India, no.
No, I'm saying for you. So obviously.
From a numbers perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, there were quite a few. In fact, one of the things that we realized that we could have made more money, okay, was by getting more into lending. Okay. So as an example, so while we were talking to Yes Bank and stuff, okay, we realized that, and we already knew, and we always thought about that credit is the way that you can make money if you have the data, okay, on the platform. But because we started talking to Yes Bank, some of the banks and some of the NBFCs, we realized that is another opportunity. So instead of just focusing on trying to open the bank account, right, is there a way that we can actually, since we have the data, the transaction data, everything else, can we actually go deeper into the credit? So the decision that I basically had to take at that point of time is, do I go deeper into the SMB space and go more into credit, okay? Or do I go and solve for a large corporate, okay, starting with the software? But then also you realize that itself can have a financial services play on it, okay? But the software play itself is profitable and it's huge.
So in a sense, almost always there will be opportunities beyond.
Oh yeah.
So when you are feeling stuck many a times,
yeah.
I think the moment you kind of open up to conversations and the moment you kind of start looking at the customer problems, or the user problems,
Yeah.
Many doors can, in a sense, open, is what I'm hearing. Because I think you started kind of listening to the enterprise customer who was probably not your core focus.
Yeah.
And that's how this kind of started. And of course, on the other side, credit. But what led you to decide on this path versus...
I think the decision was based on two parameters. Okay. The first parameter was, is there a way that we can make money on day one just from software, right? And not having to wait to make money by the integrated financial services play on it.
Got it.
Okay. And the reason we did that, okay, was you realize is that in the end, as a team, we were really a bunch of, software kids, right? None of us were from the financial services background, right? So I didn't wake up in the morning to say, I want to make the biggest NBFC of India. I never woke up to say that, right? I didn't wake up to say that I want to become the biggest payments company in India, right?
So essentially identifying and being true to where you come from, who you are.
Exactly.
So technology revenue, you understand,
Yeah.
and that's where you wanted to kind of focus on.
So when we got the opportunity, okay, to say that there's money just on the software itself, okay, and sizable revenue, plus an opportunity to do financial services later on also, okay, then we just realized that I will be able to make a company where, we'll be able to build a bit more predictability, okay, because if you push all your revenue, okay, to the back end to say I will only make money after 2 years, right? I don't say it's a wrong decision, but what I say is that there's so much of unpredictability into that.
It's like scoring 100 runs in the last 5 overs of
Exactly.
sorts.
And till the time you get there, you're like, okay, I'm just going to, push around here one or twos, right? I will not take a risk, right? And I'll build my entire team around it to say that the last 5 overs I want to pay 100, right? Vis-a-vis, if throughout that innings, if I can just figure out a way to keep, actually being like Cody, right? Wherever you just keep making sure that you hit 1-4, okay, and just couple of fast runs, that at the end, even if you score at 40, right, you'll still reach your goal.
And coming now to the last part of our conversation, which is you got acquired by Chargebee.
Yeah.
Talk us through how did you kind of decide that it's something that you want to kind of you'll be comfortable with, which is to sell and get acquired.
So the first time someone told us that they're interested in acquiring us, okay, and it came through one of our board members, okay. I remember that conversation. I think I've always prided myself that whenever any of the key stakeholders used to ask me for a decision, I would always take a step back and say, I'll get back to you. I would never give an answer immediately because I want to make sure my thoughts are clear. And in that conversation, my first reaction was absolutely not, right? I almost told him that it's like selling my soul. So this is not going to happen. Okay, this was just about early 2020 before the COVID and all, right? I said, no, this is definitely not going to happen. And I went back and I told my team and the board members, like, when you start a startup, you think about it as your child, right? Is that it's like giving birth to a child and then raising it and all the emotions behind it. So irrespective of whether the offer is good, bad, ugly, right? You're not going to sell a child. Okay, so how can I sell my company? And over a period of time, okay, I think maybe I got a bit more mature. Okay, maybe my board members also were able to understand where we're coming from. What really happened was, without taking a name, we actually had a global company in payments, okay, come to us, okay, and they told us that we want to do a strategic partnership with you, right? And the way the strategic partnership was really being done is that why they would have invested in us and partnered with us, right? They would almost have a right of first refusal, if the partnership went through and stuff like that. While the deal, nothing was signed, I mean, for various other reasons out of our control, the deal didn't go through, okay? But when that kind of conversation happened, to be honest, I felt like this is almost like selling a company.
When I mean a partnership that looked like
that basically looked at that it's a strategic partnership, and they at certain point of time they would have the right to.
And you were considering.
Yeah, and I was considering it.
Yeah,
right.
It was
because
not. It was not a no.
No, and I was like, and for me it was like this is a great outcome for the product.
Yeah.
Right. It can go global and it can really change the game, and so at that point of time, this feeling of I'm selling my child, okay.
That changed.
That changed, and I think I really have to thank one of my advisors there, where he made a very interesting statement. He was like, instead of thinking of your startup like a child, why don't you think of your startup as buying a first house? So all of us who ever bought a first house, right? You would realize that you save for years, okay, to get to that. You're so emotionally attached. You are involved in selecting the tile to the sanitary ware to the curtains, right? Everything. And when the house gets done, you create so much memories in it. And then if I come and tell you, why don't you sell your house, right? Sometimes the first reaction would be no. But as time goes by, at the right time, at the right price, you will sell. And you may just sell because you want to go to a bigger house, okay? But you are ready to sell, right? But the emotions are still there, the memories are still there, right? Now, if you think about your startup as your first house, it has all the emotions, okay? It has all the memories. It has all your toil. It has your blood, sweat, everything. But at the right time, for the right price, okay, to get something bigger in life, you may do that.
And was it a big haggle, or did you actually get the right price that you wanted?
So the thing that sometimes I always think that...
I don't know if the amount is public, so I don't want to...
No, the amount is not public, okay? But the way I'll say is that, in life, you always have to you have to work hard and keep at it. But luck plays a very interesting role. So it just so happened that one of the large sort of companies in the ecosystem, which was growing very aggressively, they in around April 21, they came and made us an offer. Right, it was a pretty generous offer at that point of time, and before that, for quite a few months, we had been partnering with Chargebee, okay, and serving some of the biggest customers. And Krish, who's the CEO founder of Chargebee, I remember he had made a statement that if you ever think about a strategic partnership, right, I'll always be open to it, okay, but I leave it up to you when you want it, or if you want it. And so when this offer came, and it was a pretty decent offer, okay, I just picked up the phone and I called up Krish to say, hey, I'm actually considering this offer. Would you be interested? And he said, I'm definitely interested, just give me a couple of days. And so within 4 days, he made us a counter offer, or he made an offer which was significantly better than even the first one. And then the board sort of immediately accepted it. And for me, the biggest decision to do that was, I realized that we had spent quite a bit of time to get to this stage, right? And the biggest market for us was actually the US market. And if I had to again if I want to go to the US market with this, it would take me another 3 or 4 years before I'd be able to, prove the US market, grow to a certain scale, and then make it there. And I realized somewhere deep in my heart, I'm really a product guy, right? Just to see the product being used by thousands of businesses is actually what gives you the high. And here was an opportunity for us as a team to take this product global and sell to an existing base of customers.
Faster.
Much faster, okay? And I truly believed in Chargebee's business model, okay? I mean, subscription business was booming. It was a very niche segment, which itself was growing at tremendous pace. So I just felt that it was the fastest way for us to really make this product global.
Amazing.
Get thousands of customers to use it, and actually being in a segment that's growing very fast. So that's how logically we explained that to ourselves, okay? But emotionally, actually, I think it was a 9-month process to get to a stage where we were okay to be getting acquired.
Yeah. So what's next?
Well, a lot of soul searching. So this really happened in September 21 when the acquisition happened. The next year and a half, I've actually spent a lot of time in my own self-development. Okay, I think that a startup is really about a lot about the founders. Okay, and I used the opportunity, while I'd been Chargebee, is to invest a lot in myself, see what, where are areas that I can, be better at. And while doing that, I've been doing a lot of research also what's going on. And I think one area that really I've been interested in is B2B insurance. B2B insurance, right? I think that's a segment that's largely undertapped. B2B insurance, I think, has both opportunity to innovate on the product side, okay, a lot, as well as on the distribution side. So these are two areas that I'm very, very interested in. And some of the new regulations that the RDI has released in the last 1.5 years are very, very positive. In fact, I've not seen so much of innovation, by a central sort of regulator, okay, that's happened in the insurance space. So I'm very, very excited. So I've been speaking a lot to some of the insurance companies in India, the customers, and I think, one of the most important pieces about insurance is that we've always thought of insurance, especially in the B2B space, as a risk mitigation product, right? So I want to minimize my risk, okay? But I think insurance can be used as a growth propeller. So how can you use insurance as a way to sort of, take slightly more bolder bets, go serve slightly more traditionally riskier customers, okay, and do that. And I also think that some of the insurance products can be a substitute to a bit more capital inefficient financial services products. So I think B2B insurance is a space where a lot can be done.
I don't disagree. Yeah, I think insurance is just starting in India,
Yes.
right? I mean, so I'm going to be almost wanting to say that working closely with you to make sure that
I
it
look forward to that,
happens.
man.
But thank you so much. I think it was a fabulous kind of understanding on how you think, especially as an entrepreneur, and having been through that entire journey, right, from the trepidations to start to starting something to something that didn't work, pivot and get acquired. It's really the entire journey, and congratulations for
Well, thank you.
for all that you've achieved and your team. Rajiv, by the way, say hi to Rajiv next time you do see him.
I will. And by the way, this journey would not be complete if I don't say this. Is so many times during my when I was thinking about these pivots, when I was debating what's going on, there was a gentleman who was very patient, gave me a very good ear. So Shubhank, I've always been thankful to you.
No, of course.
For those times. I know you don't necessarily have the answers, but at least you were patient enough to listen to my
Always.
rant and questions and at least sort of make me think about things slightly more differently. So one of the things that I always tell all the fellow entrepreneurs that I speak to is you should always have your own board of advisors, okay? And the more diverse the board of advisors, the better, okay? Because what you should not be in your own echo chamber,
Yeah.
right? And there has to be someone who can sort of ask you, some or poke holes or be a devil's advocate, okay? So that you're able to understand the situation slightly better. So that is one advice, and people should really, really make an effort to go out and build that board of advisors for themselves.
I agree. Thank you again, Aditya.
My
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.